Hello, YouTube. The most dangerous animals on planet Earth are predators that kill people out of bloodlust and not in connection with the instinct of self-preservation. Such species live in large numbers in the water expanses of the continent. Fish are one of the most beautiful creations of nature, which can be found almost anywhere in the world. But apart from the fact that fish are beautiful, they can be quite dangerous. People are always attracted by mysterious events, in particular those associated with monsters of the underwater depths, lurking in black sinkholes, and going hunting at dusk when the forces of evil rule, or forces of nature that are inexplicable. In the rivers of Russia, Ukraine, and some other European countries, unlike the reservoirs of exotic countries, there are no giant snakes or alligators. Most of the vacationers and fishermen in those areas, in Ukraine, Russia, calmly, without fear for their lives because of river creatures, go swimming or fishing. They may be not doing it right now because of the war, but I'm speaking in general, especially in the days of my youth in the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, there's a fish that lives in almost all rivers of Russia and can kill a person, and not only Russia. But let me start with that country. River catfish is the largest fish in the central part of Russia. You see, there, catfish can reach 300 kilos with a body length of 5 meters. Residents of the coast of large rivers in Russia say that catfish the size of an adult and weighing like a calf are not uncommon. In addition, it is important to remember that catfish are predators, and they eat not only dead meat and small fish, but also poultry, small animals, and sometimes even people. And I will bring you stories from my notes throughout this video. The dimensions of the catfish allow them to easily drag a careless victim to the bottom, a fisherman or a woman rinsing laundry. The common catfish is included in the list of the largest fish in Eurasia. In the literature, there are mentions of giant catfish whose weight reach from 300 to 400 kilograms. According to biologists, in the climatic conditions of Russia, catfish can reach a length of 5 meters with a weight of 300 kilograms and live up to a century of age or even more. And under particularly favorable conditions, this fish can be even more, which of course only confirms the rumors about the catfish attacks on people. The catfish of Russian rivers are often compared with African crocodiles. They, like the reptiles, disguise themselves and merge with the surrounding landscape, gently swim up to the victim and attack him or her. An adult catfish looks threatening. A huge head with small eyes, a long mustache, a powerful flattened body covered with mucus. All these are signs of adaptation to the bottom lifestyle. Catfish live, as a rule, on the muddy bottom, where they are very difficult to notice. Often the victims mistake the catfish for a log. Most of the time, catfish spend at the bottom of some river pit, hiding under driftwood. The downside of the catfish's life is that by nature, they're homebodies. Fish are they reluctantly swim away from their nests somewhere else. They're always in the area of their feeding grounds and spawning grounds. This type of fish spends most of the time alone. Only before hibernation does this fish gather in schools. Getting up to the bottom dwelling, so to say, they do not eat for several months, saving and spending the accumulated fat. The dark color of the back and sides with multicolored spots that smoothly merge into one another make catfish almost invisible. A stationary catfish resembles a sunken log or rocks covered with bottom sediments. It is not surprising that with such camouflage, the catfish finds it that it is easiest to hunt from ambush. If any fish swims by, it immediately makes a throw, swallows it, and returns to its lair. Catfish can leave it only for the sake of active hunting at night. A strong tail allows the fish to swim quickly, and even the most nimble and strong fish will not swim past a huge mouth with small, sharp teeth. At the same time, the mouth of a 3-meter catfish can open by 1.5 meters. It is clear why this terrible fish can safely eat ducks, geese, and even dogs. Well, you feel it especially when you see a large catfish. The color of this fish from above is almost dark, almost black, while the belly, on the contrary, is light, usually grayish-white. The naked torso, completely devoid of scales, makes the catfish incredibly slippery when it gets into the hands, and often it is the circumstance that saves the fish's life. A large blunt head, a huge mouth for a river fish from which 2 long whiskers depart, 4 more small antennae are located on the chin. This is the external portrait of the fearsome animal. Catfish whiskers are a kind of navigator. With their help, a fish can find food even in pitch darkness. The catfish eyes are small as slits compared to its impressive dimensions, and at the same time they are very angry. In the old days, the Cossacks even called the catfish a river wicked creature, or zlidень. In fact, catfish is the largest inhabitant of the river waterways of the Rostov region. Its dimensions reach up to 3 and even up to 4 or 5 meters in length. Over the past 4 years alone, more than 20 individual catfish have been recorded in the south and in the middle zone of Russia. And the weight of those individuals, so to say, exceeded 200 kilograms. By the way, the Rostov Oblast borders Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk regions, and also Volgograd and Voronezh Oblast in the north in Russia, Krasnodar and Stavropol Krai in the south, and the Republic of Kalmykia in the east. Since ancient times, many legends and tales have been associated with catfish. The ancient Slavs considered the catfish to be a devil horse of the water, which uses its whiskers as reins. The fear of this huge fish, which allegedly supplies drowned people to the water goblin, was connected with this circumstance. That's why catfish fishing was strictly prohibited in Russia. But there were also rational reasons to be afraid of this fish. Catfish, again, is a real predator. Its main diet consists of freshwater fish. But this primarily concerns small and medium-sized catfish individuals. It is not easy for a large catfish to feed itself. It is quite difficult for a catfish to hunt for a small river fish, primarily because of its clumsiness. So even a dozen fish caught in a day is a drop in the sea, so to say, for such a freshwater giant. From this, the catfish has to be a kind of cleaner of the river bottom, sometimes even feeding on drowned people at the depths of the reservoir. Sometimes animals or birds enter the water and, unfortunately, also become prey to this freshwater predator. Not so long ago, in the Kuban and the Don regions of Russia, before women went to the river to rinse their underclothing from the catwalks, men first went themselves and checked for the presence of large catfish in this place by external signs. According to these villagers, catfish often snatched women's underclothing from their hands while they were rinsing it in the river water, and even attacked the women themselves. Residents of the Don River villages often tell different stories about how a cat calmly grabbed with its huge mouth and swallowed domestic geese and ducks before their eyes. It happened in the Saratov reservoir. The man went on a boat to fish and left his dog on the shore. After a while, for some reason, the pet became nervous and swam to his master, although the boat had already driven a kilometer or sailed a kilometer and a half away from the shore. When the dog swam half the way, the water near the dog bubbled and the animal disappeared forever in the catfish's mouth. And again, in Zaporozhye, on a ship sunk in the Dnieper River, scuba divers found a 5-meter catfish stuck in a hole. The remains of 3 people were later found in its stomach. But later about this incident. Unlike a shark, a catfish usually swallows its prey whole, like a python, and then digests it for just as long. Therefore, in order to attack a person, a catfish must be an impressive ogre. A 4 to 5 meter giant is just right for this role. The appearance of the catfish inspires, if not fear, then at least a sense of danger. Professional fishermen who are doing fishing on the Volga River from year to year are convinced that large catfish eats bodies of drowned people. Once they have tasted human meat, they move from frogs and rotten waste to a new kind of food source. Then, addicted, the catfish allegedly begins to hunt for live swimmers who have descended to a great depth. Fans of underwater fishing with a gun say this: without killing a predator with the first shot, you risk staying underwater forever. The jaws are full of small teeth, like with a brush, and each jerk of the victim only brings it closer to the stomach of the beast. Even with a catfish weighing 15 to 20 kilograms, it is no longer possible to cope. A predator, as a rule, grabs a person by the arm or leg and drags him to a great depth. So it's a smaller size, but still dangerous. Of course, the most characteristic feature of catfish is aggressiveness. The wounded fish immediately attacks the offender. Even a relatively small catfish, weighing just like 25 to 30 kilograms, can drag a person underwater forever. Catfish spawning is accompanied by violent games with noisy splashes, impacts underwater, and similar behavior. The principle of catfish hunting is very simple. To do this, the fish only needs to hide in shallow water under some snag, wait for the prey, drag it to the depth, and drown. It happens that even a person becomes a victim of a catfish whose person is quite easy to grab by the arm or leg and drag to the bottom. In addition, catching a defenseless bathing or swimming person, especially if it is a child, is absolutely no difficulty for a large catfish. It is worth remembering that catfish is, first of all, a night hunter who wants its prey mainly in the morning and evening. Daytime catfish attacks on people take place only on very hot days when large fish come to the surface of the water. On the Don River, several attempts to attack people by catfish were widely publicized and caused a great public outcry. Here is what the Don fisherman Vladimir Kondratyov told newspapers. That July morning, I was fishing near the village of Bagaevskaya. Then fishing from the shore clearly did not work out, so I had to sail away from the shore on my rubber boat. After sitting in the boat for about half an hour, I suddenly felt that a large fish was biting. It began to pull the fishing rod on itself, but the force of the reverse side was much greater, such that the fishing rod escaped from my hands. Suddenly, my boat began to rock violently, and then someone turned it over completely, and I was overboard. Then I saw a huge catfish coming straight at me, which turned out to be as tall as me. It bit my hand very painfully, clinging to it like a dog, and began to pull me along. Fortunately, I had a hunting knife in my pants pocket, which I took to gut the fish I caught and cook the fish soup over a fire. I grabbed this knife and struck several random blows on the fish's face, after which the catfish let me go and disappeared. I barely managed to swim to the shore. The wounded arm had to be treated for a whole week, and the desire to fish from the shore completely disappeared. But what can interest a catfish? First of all, the noise that immediately attracts its attention and sometimes makes it get out from under a snag to track down the victim. In addition, catfish are very susceptible to various odors. It is no coincidence that chicken fillet, sprinkled with various flavoring seasoning, is used when fishing for them. Therefore, even a light scent or perfume, cologne, or deodorant can become a kind of bait for catfish. You can protect yourself from the attacks of these river predators if you stay away from the pools on the river, a favorite shelter of catfish. In addition, you should not swim to a great depth, especially alone. Well, especially dangerous is meeting with these hungry fish. Sometimes such predators turn over fishermen's boats to eat a person in their native element. A case is known that occurred near the village of Kurska. Not far from the settlement, there was a very large reservoir in which a senior sergeant from a local military unit drowned. And when the divers sank to the bottom in search of the serviceman's body, they found about a dozen 5-meter catfish, which were located near the sergeant's body. As a result, the divers did not approach the predatory fish. Locals also told how one day at dawn, a catfish dragged a young man under the water. Residents of the village searched for fish for several nights in a row in order to kill it. Well, and it was only possible to deal with this Russian crocodile after more than 2 weeks of hunting for it. It was able to evade the humans for so long. Well, catfish are not at all adverse to eating birds or small mammals. Large catfish are able to drag a dog, cat, or even small calf to the bottom. Cases of catfish attacks on swimming young children have also been recorded. With pleasure, catfish eats frogs, snails, crustaceans, and insect larvae. This predator does not disdain carrion. Catfish often are seen in shallow waters or even almost on the shore, where they eat the corpses of animals that perish due to flooding. During such a feast, a catfish can sometimes swallow completely inedible things: scraps of nets, fishing line, buttons, children's toys too. Catfish adhere to such a diverse diet in the warm season. In winter, they get stuck in the underwater pits, become sluggish, and almost stop hunting, spending the fat reserves accumulated over the summer. But with the onset of spring, catfish, like bears, begin to eat again. On an average, catfish lives 30 years, but I've told you different ages. However, also there are cases when fishermen have caught catfish, individuals whose age was estimated to be 60 years or more. Adult and healthy catfish have no natural enemies other than humans. Risk-loving fishermen dream of joining the fight with the strongest, largest catfish. To do this, they look for suitable places and use various tricks to lure this freshwater giant. One of them is called quack. With the help of this device, resembling a curved knife with a heel at the end, the fisherman makes a kind of gurgling sounds hitting the water with a hook. Catfish are attracted by this gurgling. They rise from the depths to the surface and grab the bait: frogs, crayfish, worms, or rotten meat. Catfish are mostly nocturnal, and if they move, then more at dawn. On hot days, they can go to the surface of the water. They're very sensitive to cold, but samята, or young catfish, I don't want to say catfish cubs, are more mobile. At night, in search of food, they go to shallow places, to the shores. Catfish does not like muddy water, and therefore in rainy weather, when muddy water enters the river, it tends to leave their pit, so to say, and go to the surface. The same behavior is observed before a thunderstorm. Being large fish, catfish easily discover themselves. They leave a characteristic trace when moving in the water. They make sounds, they splash. When searching for food, the catfish is more guided by the sense of smell. So, many catfish fishermen claim that catfish really like the smell of burnt feathers, wool, and felt. Now, Ukraine. In the Ukrainian media of recent years, information has repeatedly appeared that local residents of Zaporozhye in the area of the island of Khortytsia were often attacked by cannibal catfish who overturned motorboats. But no deaths were recorded. But there is more to the Ukrainian catfish. They say that catfish is able to drag a deer under the water. There are stories about killer fish that attempted to kill a person. There are rumors that a missing ship with a hole in the side was found near the island of Khortytsia on the Dnieper River. A huge 5-meter somyara, as they say, it's a slang word, or huge catfish, was stuck in a big hole. After an autopsy, the remains of 3 people were found in its stomach, presumably Polish tourists who escaped from a ship in distress. And what about Russian Asia? Vladimir Klavdievich Arseniev, whom I quote and cite in my videos about strange phenomena of the Russian Far East of the late 19th century, of course, early 20th century, well, Arseniev, in his book, described an episode of how a huge catfish attacked a bear that was hunting in the river. The bear was fishing, catching the fish with its clawed paw. And the bear almost became the prey of an underwater monster, very strong in the water. But the power of the Siberian bear saved it from the huge catfish. Now, the Amur catfish, Parasilurus azotus, is a far eastern species. It can live in salt water with a low concentration. The huge catfish species, I believe, are called Soldatov catfish. Now, the European catfish, Silurus glanis, so common, native to Eastern Europe. There is the largest population of this fish. It exists in the east, in the Aral Sea, in the northern regions of the Baltic Sea, also in the Black and Caspian. Common catfish were also brought to the reservoirs of Portugal, France, Britain, France, and Germany, Spain too. Excuse me. River catfish is widespread. The catfish's habitat, by the way, so it extends from the Rhine River. The population extends east beyond the Amur, so towards China, in Eurasia and the reservoirs of Finland. The river catfish is an indigenous inhabitant. There is a lot of it, I want to underline, in the basins of Aral and the Caspian Seas. And fishermen love this fish, and it is found everywhere except for the rivers of the Arctic Ocean. So if you want to do fishing of the catfish, I told you what to look out for, and the rest is up to you. Thank you very much for your attention to my videos. I intend to bring you more interesting videos about unusual animals on our planet, and that's besides the paranormal phenomena. So please, if you can support my research, you can do it through Patreon, you can do it through PayPal. Look at the links, and kindly subscribe to my channel. Tell others about it. Thank you.